Okay, the next video we're going to look at are depressive disorders and bipolar and related disorders. It's important for you to know that these two disorders were formerly one category known as mood disorders. However, now in the DSM-5, they are two separate categories. So we have depressive disorders and bipolar and related disorders. So we're going to talk about depressive disorders first. Major depressive disorder is the first disorder we're going to talk about. This is known as the common cold of psychological disorders because it's exactly that. This is the number one reason people seek mental health services. Between 6 to 10% of the U.S. population is clinically depressed. And women are twice as likely as men to experience major depression, and approximately a quarter of all females will experience an episode of major depression at some point in their life. So this is a very common disorder, and I'm sure you have had experience with someone who has had a depressive episode. So some of the symptoms that are part of major depressive disorder, these symptoms must last for 2 weeks without cause. And what that means is that this is not just because you have a family member who passed and now you are sad. Nope, these must be a 2 weeks without cause or 2 months after someone has passed. So basically what this is, I want you to think back to when we did our states of consciousness section of the biological unit when we talked about drugs. If someone takes a depressant, what are you doing to your body? You are slowing down brain and body functioning. That is what depression is. It is not just someone being sad. Please do not say that. What this is that it is slowing down brain and body functioning. So the person must experience at least 4 of the following: marked weight loss or gain, so that metabolism is either slowing down, constant sleeping problems, agitated or greatly slowed down behavior, fatigue, inability to think clearly, feelings of worthlessness, and then frequent thoughts of death or suicide. So what are the causes of major depressive disorder? Well, according to the psychoanalytic approach, it would be that losses evoke memories of negative childhood experiences, and then our unresolved anger towards our parents, and so then we fall into these depressive episodes. The biological side of it, this is important for you to know, is that depression is a lack of or insufficient amount of neurotransmitters in our brain, specifically serotonin, norepinephrine, and dopamine. These are important. You need to know these. You need to know that depression is because there is a lack of or an insufficient amount of specifically serotonin, norepinephrine, and dopamine. So that is the cause, the biological cause of major depressive disorder. The social cognitive cause might be that our negative thoughts influence our negative behaviors that then influence the situation, which then in turn influence our thought patterns, which is this depression cycle, right? So we have a negative stressful event, which then leads to a pessimistic or ruminating or negative explanatory style, which means we're explaining away this negative event, which leads to a depressed mood or a depressed state, which then leads to us thinking or changing the way that we think and act, which then could fuel personal rejection and another negative stressful event. So this is the cycle of depression. Another disorder is persistent depressive disorder. This was formerly known as dysthymia. And this is a less disabling form of depression. So what this does is usually someone is experiencing these depressive episodes for a longer period of time. However, it is lower grade, meaning that those symptoms aren't going to be as intense as with major depressive disorder. So this one is going to last longer, but be less intense. The next is disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. This was formerly known as childhood bipolar disorder. This can be seen by a child being irritable or angry all day, and their temper outbursts have to occur 3 or more times per week. Okay, let's move on to bipolar and related disorders. Bipolar disorder was formerly known as manic depressive disorder, and that's important to know because those are the two ends of the spectrum that we're going to be talking about. The two polar or poles of this disorder, the manic symptoms and the depressive symptoms. And what bipolar disorder is it's an alteration between depression and mania, and going between these two symptoms. So the depressive symptoms are feeling gloomy or withdrawn, inability to make decisions, tired, and slowness of thought. Again, that depression or slowing down of our brain functioning and body functioning. And then the manic symptoms are elation, euphoria, desire for action or hyperactivity, and multiple ideas. So this is the opposite. So this would be like taking a stimulant drug, right? So we are stimulating or arousing our brain or body functioning. So I do not want you to think of this as being sad and excited, right? So this is more intense than that. This is a depression of our brain and body functioning, and then an excitement or an arousal of our brain and body functioning. Many great writers, poets, composers, artists actually suffer from bipolar disorder. And during their manic phase, they say that their creativity surged. And then during the depressive phases, that creativity kind of dropped off. This is a pretty common theme with famous artists. Okay, so there are different types of bipolar disorder. Bipolar 1 is someone who is experiencing manic episodes and usually major depressive episodes. So this is what I just explained. Bipolar 2 experience mania to a lesser degree. This is called hypomania, and they seem to experience they don't really see this hypomania as a problem. They see it as kind of like it's helping them function to a better extent. However, people around them might be concerned with their erratic behavior. And their hypomania is lasting for 4 days or more. And then cyclothymic disorder is where hypomania and depressive symptoms are lasting for 2 years. However, those symptoms do not constitute a full major depressive episode or a mania episode. Okay, so what causes bipolar disorder? Well, the biological side of things are saying that it is extremely strong evidence for inherited predisposition. What that means is that 2/3 of those with this disorder have a family history of some other mood disorder. So we know that this runs in families, but it also appears to have some psychological factors because these psychological factors or these social factors or cognitive thoughts can trigger new episodes, and the stressful events that someone is going to go through could trigger either a manic episode or a depressive episode. Here is some more evidence for the biological side of things, and we can see how the brain is reacting when in the two different states. So on the left-hand side, you'll see a depressed state on May 17th. You can see, again, that brain activity is slowed, right? Then on May 18th is the manic state. That brain activity is excited, is aroused. Those yellow and red colors mean that we have a lot more activity happening, and then again, back to the depressed state. So we can see that the brain is actually physically changing during these two different states.